Hello, my name is Gabby and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, then welcome to my channel, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about my worst books from 2019. So my last upload was actually my best books from 2019, so I decided that for today's video, we would just switch it around and do the opposite. So my average rating from last year was a 3.9, so this wasn't necessarily like a bad reading year for me at all. And then there are some books in this list too that I did end up giving 3 stars, which isn't necessarily a rating that I would consider to be bad, but because of the nature of the reading year that I had, I guess for this one it's going to be. So when I was looking through all of last year's books, I narrowed it down to 12, but this is going to be a list of 10, so we're going to have 2 honorable mentions. So with that, my honorable mentions in no particular order are Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik and Ace of Shades by Amanda Foody. And also, I will actually be talking about these 2 books more in depth over in my most disappointing reads of 2019, and that video will be coming out on Monday. So with that, let's go to number 10 now, and number 10 is A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Brigid Kemmerer. This follows Prince Ren, who was cursed by an enchantress to repeat the autumn of his 18th year. He thinks that all he needs to break this curse is to just have a girl fall for him, however that gets all turned upside down when he starts turning into a vicious beast. And then this also follows our main character Harper, who lives in Washington DC, where her life has never been easy, from her dying mother to her brother constantly underestimating her for her cerebral palsy. One day she is trying to save this stranger on the streets, and then she is eventually pulled into the magical world. Ren and Harper meet, and Ren begins to have some hope in regards to his curse, but more powerful forces are standing against the kingdom, and it's going to take more than a broken curse to save it. So on paper here, everything sounds amazing, like the exact perfect book that I should fall in love with. But as I was reading, I was just mostly bored. I had a lot of trouble getting through this, and then there was also this love triangle in here that I wasn't expecting and also just didn't enjoy. And on that same level, I just didn't really like any of the characters, although I did hear really good things about the cerebral palsy rep, which love that. I do just wish that I ended up loving all of it, but unfortunately, it just wasn't meant to be. So next I have Batman Nightwalker by Marie Lu. So this is book 2 from the DC Icon series, and it follows a Gotham City that is being terrorized by the Nightwalkers, and it more specifically follows Bruce Wayne as he is ordered to do community service at Arkham Asylum after he has a run-in with the police. And it is there that Bruce meets a girl named Madeline who has a connection to the Nightwalkers and will only speak to Bruce. However, as he is starting to get her to give up her secrets, he may also be giving her the info that she needs to bring down Gotham. So if you don't know, I am a massive fan of DC Comics, and when they started putting out these collabs with these YA authors, I was super excited and interesting to see what they would come up with. I read Catwoman Soul Stealer first for this series, and it actually got me to like a Sarah J. Maas book, so going into this one, I was really looking forward to it. But unfortunately, there just wasn't much here. Like, I remember while reading just being like, is this it? Is this all it's going to be? So the story itself ended up feeling really basic for me, and nothing about it really interested me other than Madeline on occasion. It's not the worst thing I've ever read, which is why it's at number 9, but I was just so dissatisfied with it overall. I am still really looking forward to the rest of the DC Icon series though. I still have Wonder Woman and Superman to read, and I just saw the Black Canary is getting one too, so I'm really looking forward to those, and we'll just see how they go. So number 8 on this list is P.S. I Still Love You by Jenny Han, which is the sequel to All the Boys I Loved Before. So To All the Boys I Loved Before follows our main character Laura Jean, and when she was really young, she wrote each of her crushes a love letter, put them in a box, and stored them all under her bed. One day, all of her letters get mysteriously sent to these guys, and the story just goes from there. So book 1 and book 3 from this series were actually honorable mentions in my best books of 2019 video, or you know, they would have been if I had remembered to name them. But I do just adore both of those 2 books so much, but this one, I just really did not enjoy it. I didn't think the love triangle was necessary, and all of the characters in here just really ended up annoying me, which makes me so sad to say because I love these characters and I love this couple, and I will say that there were some really cute moments between them in here that really saved this thing for me. And then we also bounced back with the 3rd book, but this one was just not enjoyable in just way too many ways and gave me way too many negative emotions, so this one unfortunately does make the list. Like, I gave book 1 a 5, I gave the 3rd book a 5-star too, and then this one's just sitting there at like a 2.5 or something. I don't know, this one just hurts my heart to put on this list, but... So next we have Daughter of Smoke and Bone and also its sequel, Days of Blood and Starlight by Laini Taylor. So Daughter of Smoke and Bone is like a forbidden love, angels versus demons story. I couldn't really find a good way that would help me describe this plot any further than that. So this was one of the first book series that I picked up in 2019, and unfortunately it just was not for me at all. I really did not like the romance in here. The monsters in here, they all have animal features, and my mind just imagined them with like these big mascot-esque heads. And that just led to certain certain aspects of the story just feeling weirder than they should have. And the story overall I just wasn't too interested in, and I constantly kept trying to be, but it just never clicked, and I didn't like the second book either. Now the third book I actually did enjoy in some capacity, so that's why that's not on this list. And then there were some side characters in here that I really did enjoy, and I was mostly just continuing on with the series for them, but other than those, there just wasn't much good in here for me at all. I have heard amazing things about Strange the Dreamer, so that will hopefully be my redemption with Laini Taylor, because people really love her writing, and I feel like I haven't gotten to experience that yet, and I really want to, so hopefully that's going to be a better time for me. So at number 6, I have I Do Not Trust You by Laura J. Burns and Melinda Metz. So this follows our main character M, who has a very large knowledge of long-lost languages and cultures, and she finds out from this other main character named Ashwin that the father that she actually thought was dead actually isn't, and not only that, but he needs her help. The closer these two get, and the more they fall for one another, the closer they get to destroying the world. So what I wanted from this originally was just an adventure story, and it definitely gave that to me. There just wasn't much other than that. There is nothing here that I am mad at or annoyed with. It's just compared to everything else that I read, this just really fell short. And honestly, I also have very little memory of it, so it's going to be number 6. So number 5 is When We Were Lost by Kevin Wignall, and then this was also presented by James Patterson. So this follows our main character Tom, who doesn't want to go on the class field trip to Costa Rica, but because of certain circumstances, he ends up on the plane. The plane ends up crashing in the South American wilderness, and Tom and a small group of his classmates have to figure out how to survive. There is nothing about this book that I remember actually working for me, and once again, I don't really remember a lot of it. But I do remember thinking that a lot of the characters in here were annoying, and that some of the decision making really made me like roll my eyes. Yeah, there's not really much else to say here. I did read this around the same time as this one back here. So as you can probably tell, that was quite the thrilling week of reading for me. So at number 4, we have Siege of Storm by Leigh Bardugo, which is the sequel to Shadow and Bone. So if you don't know, because this series is pretty popular, but it is a nation that was ripped in half by an impenetrable shadow fold. The only hope comes from a refugee named Alina, who shows a special power while trying to save her best friend who was injured by the shadow fold. She is taken away to the royal court, where she is trained as a member of the Grisha, which is like a magical elite force that is led by the Darkling. Alina will have to confront both the secrets of the Grisha and her own heart in order to save the country. So Shadow and Bone, I thought it was fine. Ruin and Rising I actually thought was fine too, but then there were certain aspects of Ruin and Rising that probably make it my favorite from the series. With that being said, this middle one here made me want to question if I even wanted to continue with this series. I do not enjoy the main canon couple of this series, nor do I ship our main character with anyone in here. And that is something that can be said for just like this whole series in general, but in this book specifically, I found them to be incredibly irritating. Now there is a certain somebody who is introduced in this book, and I do love him, but he also kind of turns this love triangle in here into like a weird love square that I just did not like. I will say, just as a whole, I'm not too big of a fan of this trilogy. My love for the Grishaverse does kind of come from Ruin and Rising, because that book just has such a big cast of characters and they were all like bantering and working together with one another. So I thought Ruin and Rising was kind of fun in certain ways, but my love for the series mostly comes from Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, and then later King of Scars. I will say that my love for this universe has made me appreciate this trilogy a little more and like look at it in a different light. But when I look back on like my actual reading experience with this trilogy, this book especially, I just had a really rough time. So these top 3 are actually very close, and on any given day they could probably take each other's spots, but for now, number 3 is The Infernal Devices by Reeve, which is the 3rd book in the Mortal Engines series. So Mortal Engines is this series that follows like these giant steampunk cities that are on wheels, and it basically follows our main character's adventures throughout this world. So I read these books after I watched the Mortal Engines movie, because I actually did really enjoy the Mortal Engines movie, and I enjoyed the first book as well, but the books that came after that were rough. So this is a 4-book series total, and I will say the 4th book was okay. This is more specifically the middle 2 that I'm referring to here, and if I had my way, it would be the 2nd book that I would be specifically talking about in this video, but I read that during 2018. And that's not to say that this book is like taking the fall for book 2 or anything. Like, I didn't like either one of them. I just really didn't like book 2, probably more than I didn't like this one. At a certain point in book 2, all of the characters that I had grown to like and enjoy just got destroyed by their own actions and the way they treat one another, and I just couldn't get on board with any of it. The world itself in here was still super cool and interesting, I will give it that, but otherwise I was just way too annoyed, way too frustrated, way too angry with just all of it, just way too much. Also, fun fact, this was the first book I finished in 2019, so this was really a strong start to the year. So at number 2, I have Circle of Shadows by Evelyn Skye. So this follows our main character and her Gemina, who are apprentice warriors who train in magic and fighting arts in order to protect the kingdom. They want to prove themselves worthy of making the elite force, but it is proven to be difficult in like the climate of the world that they live in. So when they randomly discover a group of mysterious soldiers one day, they decide to infiltrate them, and then this changes our main character's life forever. I've talked about this book briefly on my channel before when I was reading The Crown's Game by this author. I don't think I've ever gone into like detail or anything, or maybe I have and I just don't remember. I read this one before I read The Crown's Game because I saw something for this that was like for fans of anime, and I was like, okay, why not? And I do think that that aspect of this book holds up, but it was just a weird book for me. It started out slow and info dumpy, and then it just picked up and I was having a pretty good time with it, but then we just went down so hard. I still kind of like our main character in this book, but everyone else is a no. The romance that I thought I was into just went a completely random and different way than I thought it was going to, and this was just a development that I didn't feel like really worked or really just made sense either. Like I said, it was pretty random. And just these two people as a couple for me, for the little bit that I got to read of them, they were incredibly annoying. At that point, the actual story had really slowed down for me again anyway, but I really did like The Crown's Game, so at least I have that. So number 1 on this list, and my worst book of 2019, is going to be Cursed by Thomas Wheeler and illustrated by Frank Miller. It's basically the tale of King Arthur that is spun in a way that makes the Lady of the Lake the true hero. I originally read this book for a couple of different reasons, but the main reason was that it was getting a Netflix adaptation. It is out now and I haven't watched it yet because there was just nothing in here that I really enjoyed at all. I was bored right from the beginning and right through the end too, so at least it was consistent. I talked about this before on my channel, but when I was a kid I was really big into like the King Arthur legends and like all things medieval, so I at least thought that I would enjoy that aspect of this, but it just, no. I had to spend just like one full day just forcing myself to read this book because I knew if I put it down that I wouldn't want to pick it back up. And I wanted to finish it just to see like if I wanted to watch the adaptation. And my answer after I finished it was a no, but I still may watch it. I don't know. And I don't know if the next thing that I'm going to say is going to make too much sense, but I don't know if this was written like for the show specifically, but it kind of felt like it. And I guess overall that just means that I don't really like the way the story was executed. And maybe I'll watch the show eventually and I'll love it, and that will put Circle of Shadows up in this number 1 spot later on, but for now this is definitely it. So that is going to be it for that list. My next list that will be coming on Monday is my most disappointing reads of 2019, and then after that I may have another 2019 list coming. We'll see what I feel like talking about that day. I'm assuming that I'm going to want to talk about what I'm thinking about talking about in that video, but we'll see. Also, this video might be a little late today, which will be the second one in a row. I had some issues just with like my ranking of these books the first time I did this, so I decided to refilm it. But anyway, that is going to be it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, and answer the question that will be around here if you want to do that. And hopefully I will see you here next time. Bye.